Okay, hello everybody. It is exactly 1:45 in the morning here in Melbourne, Victoria, and for some reason I've decided to start this painting. And as you can see, I've finished the drawing and I've kind of gone overboard having a look at it. I've put in a lot of details here, but I'll give you a bit of history about this scene. Last year I was over in Europe and I stopped by in Prague for a few days, and this is the area basically known as the Old Town Hall. It's kind of near the Charles Bridge and also near to the astronomical clock. So it's quite a popular area, very crowded. There's people, a lot of tourists especially, hiring out these kind of horse and carriage deals and walking around. There's an old Gothic church in the background here. So apparently this statue is based on a religious figure, a guy called Jan Hus. And it's a pretty interesting story. He was burnt at the stake, and 1915 they built this statue, this memorial for him there of his death. I think he died for his beliefs, which was quite unfortunate. And this old Gothic church here is known as Our Lady Before Tyne. And again, I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation, but I really like this area around here, and I've put in a lot of detail in the drawing because I do want the eye to sort of be focused into this area first, especially some of these doors, and then come forward into the horse and the carriage here in the front. I've also put lights up in the left hand corner, some street lamps, and these are kind of to just interrupt this section of the painting here. And I'm going to make these, emphasize these a little bit more and just get some warmth into them. Don't know how, I'll probably keep them pretty light, but a lot of the buildings here, especially on this side, I don't want the eye to go into this section too much, but I do want to emphasize some of these figures here because this is really going to balance out some of the detail on the right hand side. But I do want a lot of the focus to be around this area of the painting. So I better get started. I've got to meet my grandma tomorrow in the afternoon, so I want to hopefully get this one out the way. And I also want to thank the people who were watching my last video. I know I posted this tutorial in a bunch of places, including Reddit, Facebook. I honestly, I can't remember exactly which forums and stuff like that I posted it on. Those were the two main ones, but I ended up getting about 100 plus subscribers and a lot of views, and I had a lot of really nice comments from people saying that it was helpful, and they appreciated me going through the whole process of drawing and painting a scene like this. And there was one person as well who actually painted it and was giving it to his or her father as a gift. So that was really nice to hear, and that kind of stuff makes me really happy to know that some of you guys out there are getting some value out of the videos I make and putting it to good use. And another thing is, if you have questions about any of the stuff that I'm talking about, any of the painting techniques, or if you have suggestions on what videos you want to see, it's really important just to let me know in the comments. Or there's a Facebook group as well. You can message me there. Anywhere's fine. It just gives me a bit of a hint, I guess, on what kind of scenes to paint, because a lot of the time, when I make these videos, I want to make sure that people get some use out of them. I like choosing subjects that I personally enjoy, but at the same time, I like trying to strike a balance between what people want to see as well. So that really helps me out. Otherwise, sometimes I feel like I'm just poking around in the dark and trying to figure out what scene to do. And you know what? It's probably going to make me think less. Sometimes when you're choosing which scene to do with so many pictures and things like that, holiday pictures or reference pictures on the internet, it just really helps when someone's like, yeah, look, I want a picture of Venice, or I want to learn how to paint Prague, or I want to paint Paris or something like that. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I will get back to you. Yeah, that's all I wanted to mention. So we'll get started straight away. I think I've been talking too long now. Let's begin. One of the things I'll quickly mention as well, just before we start, are the materials that I've used. So in the actual drawing, what you're going to need to do is find yourself some permanent black pens. Now, there's two types that I use. They're these uniball pens here, and these come in 3 different sizes, at the shops here in Australia. So that's a 0.38, 0.5, and a 0.7, and they're kind of color coded, which is great. That helps to figure things out. These are some pigment liners that I use as well. They come in 5 different sizes, and I haven't actually used these for this particular drawing. For this one, I've used these uniball pens. Now, these pigment liners are actually really good if you get your hands on some of these. The reason being is they come in all these different sizes, and there's one here that's 0.05, which is really, really small. But what you can do, if you see some of the windows that I've drawn in, I've just managed to get some details on some of these window sills and frames of the windows that is just so difficult to get in with this smaller pen. And I do find as well the way that it contacts with the paper, especially when you have this kind of textured watercolor paper, this is cotton, it just manages to glide across the paper with a little less friction than some of these ballpoint rollerball gel pens. But with that said, they both create a different type of style with the lines that you make. It's hard to explain, but with these ones, with the rollerball pens, they almost give a more rigid and accurate representation. It's hard to say. It's almost when you're drawing in one direction, it doesn't want to change direction unless you put in a bit more effort. The lines just tend to flow more in one way, and there's more friction on the paper. But when you're using these ones here, when it contacts with the paper, it just has just a more smoothness, I guess, to it, and that's because the tips of them are kind of this felt material, which just makes it a lot more easier on the paper and glide a bit better. But I found actually I've been using these ones a lot more just because of the style that it creates. Okay, so enough about the pens. I'm just going to talk about some brushes now that I use. So these ones here are a bunch of flat brushes. Generally speaking, I only use flat brushes and couple of round brushes with most of my paintings these days. And I think a lot of people, when they start off painting in watercolors, they tend to pick these, generic round brushes. I'll see if I can find one, but kind of look like this. And you have 3 or 4 of these round brushes, and they don't hold much water, so when you're trying to cover a really large area, it's difficult to get a nice even wash, and you just get bits and pieces that dry faster than others, and the timing's off. So make sure that you're using the right brush depending on what you're trying to paint. If you're looking at painting a sky wash like that, or the ground, that kind of thing, or even a larger building, you want to be grabbing a flat brush, even a smaller one like this. That's going to hold more water, and the brush strokes are going to look a lot more even when you paint. So you'll use less brush strokes, which means that it's just going to look a lot more cleaner and fresher for painting. The more you go into an area and just fiddle around with it and try to fix things up, I find the more artificial things start to look, and you want that magic of watercolors to show through, that you just paint what you want on there, add a few strokes here and there, and just let it do its thing. For smaller areas and things like trees, I've got a couple of round brushes that I use. This is a number 4 round brush. It's a pretty good one, and I got this as a present from one of my friends. And I use this for a lot of little details, and especially portraits as well. It's a Staedtler brush, and I've had it for, I think I've had it for a couple of years now, and it's still going really well. This is a new little addition which I might try out later to see how it goes, but this is a rollerball, a gel pen, a white gel pen, a uniball Signo 153, and there's some nice little reviews of this on the internet, and apparently it's a really good white gel pen if you want to get a nice opaque pen. And so let's give it a try later. We'll see how it looks. But the paper, very quickly, Saunders Waterford. This is a pad that I got in the UK last year, and 19 by 28 centimeters. I don't tape off the paper, I just paint straight onto it. I find with the 300 GSM, as long as you're not drenching the entire sheet of paper, you're generally okay. You can paint straight onto it. There's a little bit of warping, but I don't bother too much, don't worry too much about that. Paints that I use here are some Schminke paints, and I've got all different kinds of paints, but these are the ones I've been using a little bit more these days. I just find them a bit more convenient, and I also really like their yellows, the Naples yellow and the yellow ochre. I've taken quite a liking to it actually as of recent, even though I've got this palette, had it now for something like 4 years, 5 years, something like that, and they last forever. They're just really concentrated. You can see I'm running low on some of this blue, some of the blues. All right, so let's get started with this video. I normally like to lean paper up very slightly like this first, and the reason for that is just to encourage the water to move downwards when you paint, because otherwise it's going to start to pool in certain areas and cause a bit of trouble. Okay, so I've got my reference picture up on the computer, and you should be able to see that as well in the video. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is painting the sky. This is a 3/4 flat brush. I'm going to go straight in actually. It's a rainy day, that's why they've got all the umbrellas and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to wet this area of the sky a little bit and kind of go down into where the roofs are. But I'm going to go all the way around the lights, let that stay white for later, because I want to just get in some lighter yellows and things like that. But just want to wet this whole area of the paper up until where the roofs begin. And what I do is that I look at the paper from an angle, and that way you can actually be able to tell that there's a light sheen on the paper, and you know that's where you've applied water. Okay, so that's pretty even. I'm going to just re-wet some of this area here because it's dried a bit quicker. Very difficult to get it completely even, but it's not a huge deal. First thing I'll do is grab some of this cerulean blue, and let's put in some up the top like that. A bit up the top, a bit here as well, maybe around the lights. The reason I'm saying around the lights is because when we go in with some of the yellow afterwards, this blue around it's just going to look nice and complement better. And it's not all going to be blue, I'm just putting in bits and pieces like that. And what I'm going to do now, down the bottom actually, let's just add in a tiny bit of, I'm going to just add in a little bit of this white mixed in to the blue. It's a bit of what is it, titanium white. Bring that down like that. Just make some smaller cloud shapes near the bottom. Let that blend in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab some, just really wet this area here. It's going to dry it up. I'm going to grab some darker paint. So I'm actually going to go to this stuff here on the palette. It's all just a bunch of leftover greys and things like that. But you want to really make sure that the paint is pretty thick as well. So that's not thick enough, and if you go in there and it's not thick enough, you're going to get blooms and just some weird things happening with the sky. So I'm just grabbing some more blue, and I'm adding some sepia in there too. So ultramarine and sepia to try to create some darker pigment. And I'm just going to go in on top like that to indicate some kind of darker clouds. And also underneath some of these clouds here, I'm going to emphasize just some darker areas too. Because after all, it is a rainy day. We don't want too much of that sort of sky showing through. So I'm going to need more of this paint, mixing it up again. Ultramarine plus sepia, really just mix a blue and a brown together. That will get you a nice dark, or you can mix all your three primaries together as well. Just put some darker ones around here, underneath these clouds too. You might get some blooms around, you never know, but don't worry too much about it if you do. Often when it dries it looks a lot better and can actually turn out looking nicer. The only reason why I say be careful with blooms is that you just have to be a lot more skilled to know how to control how they turn out. And you know, a lot of the time they don't turn out the way you want them to. So but that's, you know, part of the magic, I guess, of watercolors. And I'm just thinking around here, I can just get in a bit more darkness as well. Just a little bit like that. And the base. A bit more darkness around there. You know, while the paint is still wet, you've got a lot of time to go around and just change some of these areas up a bit more. Smaller clouds as you go down. But remember, leave some of this white on the paper. That's really important. It's so tempting, really. I just want to go in and add some more paint in there, but I know what will happen if I do that. It's just going to get rid of all that lovely light at the bottom. So I'm going to be leaving that, using so much self-restraint as I can. And, you know, just playing around with some of these clouds up the top a bit more. I want to get some extra darkness at the top. So mixing up a bit more of this blue and sepia. And, you know, I probably spend a lot more time on these washes than the average line and wash artist would do. And the reason is because I normally just use, you know, straight watercolors. so I'm used to adding layers and things like that, whereas a lot of line and wash artists, you find that they put quite light washes through and they don't fiddle around with it too much. But this is kind of my style at the moment, so I'm just going to go with it and see how that all turns out. So a bit more darkness up in that corner there. There's actually a bit there that I've missed out, but that's not a big deal. And you know, these darker clouds up the top, it's going to be interesting to see how they look, because the paper is actually slightly damp now, but then it looks like parts of it is also dried, so I'm going to get some kind of sharper edges in those clouds along with some of those softer ones too. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start on these little buildings, and looking at the picture, I've altered the color levels a little bit. I've just increased the vibrancy a bit because the original photo I took was very dull, and we're going to just exaggerate things a bit. It's kind of yellow, and we want to just make that a little bit more emphasized. So let's grab some yellow ochre. And that's actually going to be dialed down a little bit with some of this other paint that I have here on the palette. Okay, so here goes. Actually, what I'll do, some of the windows on these buildings are actually have this sort of blue reflection to them, so I'm going to go in with a second brush, pick up some of this cerulean blue and try to get in an indication of some of that in the windows, like there. Not all of them, but just some of them, like that. And if I go in quick enough, it's probably just going to bleed in and look a lot more natural. I don't want to be fiddling around too much. Okay, so popping in now with the yellow ochre. Okay, the roof is also a kind of cooler color as well, so just try to cool some of that down like that. Even this building in the back here, just cool that down. Now I'm going to go in with my flat brush pretty quickly, and actually I can use a smaller one. Drop in that yellow ochre, let it mix. If you get some white paint showing, not white paint, if you get some white areas of the paper showing through, it's not a big issue as well. I also like to leave some of these kind of window sills and things white. Don't have to paint everything in. It makes it look a lot more interesting this way. I'm not trying to be really careful with it as well. Okay, it's all blending quite nicely. Some more yellow ochre for the bottom of this building. here, and we'll go over the kind of shades underneath. I think what I'll do is just darken the building if I need to later on. Okay. Great. Going into this one to the left now, I'm going to grab some Naples yellow, mix it in. Yeah. It's kind of a blend between Naples yellow and yellow ochre. It's kind of an opaque yellow. If you don't have a Naples yellow, you can mix a bit of white into your yellow paint. That's going to do the trick. Okay, going down again. Let's get this whole area in like that. Pretty quick. Top as well. Very interesting looking building. I'm not sure if this is actually part of the church. The church is behind. There's a lot of complexity in here that I've only just implied. A bit of coolness in there. Bleed through. Okay, I'm going to make a start in this building in the back now. Mixing in a bit of sepia and tiny bit of this red. This is an English red, I think it is. As long as it's a warm color, you're fine. But I'll start off with some Naples yellow around here first, like that. And all we're trying to do is just get in some general colors. Let that bleed through, like that. Mix, do its thing on the page. Can't go wrong if you go in sort of warm color first, and then later decide to go in with some cooler color on top. So let's just get that all in one go. That. Okay. Oops. And the top of these buildings as well, I'm going to cool it down, pick up some ultramarine blue mixed in with some of that grey. And let's get some of this in like that. Encourage a bit of it to bleed in. This is about the time where you might want to start using a smaller brush. I'm going to go with this number 4 round brush, especially for just some of these spires or whatever you call them. Just get them in quickly, but accurately enough. You can go in later and redo them if you need to. That. And some here as well. Where you can see some dark areas, just try to drop in a bit of paint in those areas, let it mix in. has pretty much dried in this area anyway, so it's hard to do anything. But it's not the end. We can do another layer later on. Okay, so that's enough for that bit. Now I'm really just going to repeat this entire process with all these other buildings. So a bit of the blue again. Let's get in some windows. That bit there. And you know, I might make this umbrella blue. That's just going to help it. This one as well. Because now you're going to have the combination of this cooler color and a warmer color in the background. Drop in some darker bits as well, like that. That contrast, little things like that make a difference. Warmer at the bottom here, and let's paint this whole thing in. Here we go. And cool it down on top again with a cool grey colour. This should do it. Encourage some of that to blend. Okay. Next one we're going to go to pretty much do Naples yellow for the entire thing. Water it down a fair bit first and go in on this side there. Very kind of light Naples yellow, and maybe mix in some lemon yellow to that actually, just a tiny bit of it. You don't have to get the exact color as the reference picture. In fact, a lot of the time it looks better if you don't follow the reference picture completely. Because then what you're doing is that you're creating a combination of colors that may look better than real life even. And at times, you know, I find that I'm creating a bit of an idealistic sort of image, but painting, but it's up to you at the end of the day what sort of scene you want to portray. I just have a thing with using a lot of vibrant colors. And it might be something to do with me being partially colorblind. But I tend to pick colors that are very obvious looking and stick out to me. Going over that statue a little bit as well. Again, just to add that undercoat first. But it is in the foreground. Okay. And definitely, if you're looking for a challenge, this is a really good place to start in terms of subjects. The windows here were really a bit of a pain to draw in, but look, you have to learn to take your time with the drawing, but also set yourself a time limit. This one took me over an hour to do, and you know, I could sit here and get everything looking pretty accurate, but at the end of the day, Is that something I want to do? You know, do I want to sit here for hours on end? And for me, the answer is no. You know, I just want to create a nice loose impression and go from there. We'll get into some of the roof as well, using a bit of, this is some, I think it's cadmium red. Very vibrant red. I want to dull it down just slightly, like that. Let's get in this roof. Cut around the areas of the yellow. Drop in some of this other paint as well if you want to vary the tonalities in there. Want a bit too much on this side. Okay. Continue on. So the roof on this other side of the building, and another building that has a red roof as well, and this building here which has a kind of warmer roof too. So we get that honestly all in the same brush strokes, so we don't have to go back in later and check. Okay. Buildings here, watered down Naples yellow. And just putting that through right quickly like that. Leaving some of the white of these window sills. This roof here is a bit, there's red through it. Forgot to get this one in. That. Easily done. And just get that to melt in with the yellow. There's buildings in the background with a kind of light yellow as well, going to indicate them here. Not much detail. Let me just colour it in. Little roofs that I'll, chimneys and things like that, which I'll quickly get in there. Just looking at areas that I might have missed out, maybe here. Okay, this building here, Naples yellow. It's on the side of a building which I've indicated. Don't want to make too much of a fuss about it. I'm going to drop in a bit of grey in there too, like that, just to help indicate that it is closer to the mid-ground. Okay, so let's move on to some of these umbrellas and things like that. So where you can have a bit of fun. I'm gonna actually make the ground have a kind of cooler color as well, which means with the umbrellas and people and things like that, we're gonna want to, yeah, we're gonna want to make them a bit more warm to contrast in the areas. Okay, so what I'm going to do first actually is I'm going to get in the foreground colors, and for that I'm just going to mix up a very basic cool grey. So mix your three primaries together, blue, yellow and red, but put a bit more blue in there than usual. So I'm going to start out kind of here in the back. Be sure to cut around some of these umbrellas. I want them to be coloured in blue because it's just going to muddy the colours. And just do this sort of thing here. You're going in kind of from the back and making sure it's pretty light, cool, kind of lighter colour. It's difficult because you have to cut around all these bits and bobs, but it can be done. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, move that down to the foreground, cutting around these figures. If you're leaving some white, especially in the umbrella area, you'll be completely fine, don't worry. It's better to get in this wash on time rather than fuss around with the figures too much. Go over this. Leave the horses around the legs. Here, around this person, like that. Okay. Running out of this ultramarine blue, I need to get some more. Okay, coming down into the foreground here. What I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to wet this whole area down. Like that, and I will be dropping in some darker paint. Just wet this whole area. Okay. Now, let's get some cobalt blue and some sepia. Thicker. Let's try that. Okay. Let's feather that across. And this is just to imply that this area is the foreground, making it darker near the bottom. Almost like what you're doing with the sky, making it darker on top. You're just mirroring this at the bottom as well. And you can, look at getting in some of these little impressions of shadows and things like that. But don't worry too much. The main thing is just getting in some colour, some darker colours near the bottom. Okay. I want to add some up the top here as well. Just some little variations in the ground. Like that. Keep things looking interesting and a bit varied. You're constantly just looking and assessing whether it's dark enough, whether it's light enough, is it the right tone? Because when the paper's still wet, you can do a lot of stuff with it. But if it dries, you're going to have to do that whole wash all over again. Okay. Next step, umbrellas. So let's have a bit of fun here. Go some yellow for this umbrella. Picking up the colours straight from the palette as well. I'm going to go with some blue here. You know, look at what background colour is there. So we've got some warmer colours in the background, and we want to just vary the values as well as the tones. Might put a bit of green in this one as well. There. Bit of blue here in that one. You can even grab some purple and put that in like that. There. Bit of Naples yellow maybe for that one. Mix some cooler colour beneath it. And there and there. And you know, I'm going to go with the bright yellow for this one as well. That one here, I'm going to go with the blue. Oops, it's supposed to look like blue. Too many colours mixed in now. Just a cooler colour, like that. Okay. Little bits and pieces here as well, just indications of people walking with umbrellas in the far distance. Just need to give it a little touch, that's all you need. That. Okay. I've almost forgotten these lights here. I'm going to be emphasizing them a bit more with some yellow ochre. Just have a look at how that appears. Maybe some cadmium yellow in there. I want to emphasize that. Just make it a bit more obvious, like this. There we go. Very light wash. That's all you need. Okay. And time to get in the figures as well. Just check that area if it's dried yet. I'm going to give this a bit of a dry actually. It's time to get in some of these figures now. I'm really going to need to mix up some more greys here on the palette. I don't have enough darks that I can just pick up quickly. So going into the palette and picking up more of this sort of dark paint, a bit of sepia, a bit of ultramarine, a bit of red in there as well, like that. Let it do its thing and mingle together. And yellow, like that. Doesn't really matter what color it is. Okay, just getting a bit of darkness into this figure here, and maybe some in this one as well, just in the legs. Yeah, that. Bit here, bit more blue. Yeah, and some warmer color there. Warmer. So always just alternating it. I find that keeps things interesting. One guy there on the side. Get the legs in. The figures need to be darker than the background. This ground here. Okay, and maybe some more, bit of warmth in there as well. Maybe here, put a bit of warm color on this person. This one as well. But I'll mix in a bit of blue coming down to the legs. Same with this little child here. Bit of yellow. Let that all mix in a bit together. This one in the back. Let's alter this one. Get some blue in there. Maybe the legs as well. And a tiny bit of red for the faces. Really just a thin wash of red like that. A bit more. Just to get a kind of pink. That. Okay. Little horse, I'm just going to dull down a bit of areas underneath here, indicating only, not trying to get in too much detail. So the head up the front. Oops, and just let me try to get in some of this yellow maybe for this figure here. This one as well, while we're at it. This one needs to be a lot darker, but we'll get in a quick wash to begin with first. Okay, something quick like that. The legs of this horse here, I'm just going to darken up a bit near the bottom. Haven't spent too much time drawing it. There's actually two here. Lighten the tail a bit like this. Go. Bit more blue in here maybe. Underneath there. And where this area of the white is, I'm just going to pick up some clean water and try to soften it. Just a smidge. Okay. Try to get in a bit of detail on these birds sitting on top here as well. Just darken them, that's all you need to do. Here's this grey paint. Darken this pole more. Be very careful. Okay. I'm kind of thinking about the shadows here as well. Because it is raining, I want to get some kind of reflections here on the ground where the figures are walking, and really one of the best ways to do that is just to re-wet the entire area, drop in some dark paint. So I'm going to be doing that. It's probably going to do it in this area as well where the horse is. So let's give this a go, re-wetting here. Okay, just check the paper underneath the light again to make sure you've got those areas wet. And give it a second to soak in to the page. Swap over to a smaller round brush. And what you're going to do is just pick up some kind of greyish paint. I've already got some mixed here, but I'm going to cool it down more and just make it thicker. That. More blue. Okay, so just like that. Like that. Darkness under here. Some on the back as well with those figures there. They're going to appear sharper because that area is dried already. Soften this bit of the wheel here. Okay. Bit more detail onto these figures. So I'm just looking for areas that I can darken. So with some of them I'm just darkening the legs, some I've darkened the coats and things like that. Darkness underneath this umbrella. Little things like that can often make a difference. Dark areas of this carriage. Don't really need to paint it in, just get in the values and got a bit of Naples yellow here, warming up, and really with the rest of it I'm mixing a bit of red with sepia. Just applying a bit of detail here, and bits of pieces sort of going over there. Okay, I'm going to add in just some shadows in the buildings while I can. So underneath areas like, you know, here, so that's an opportunity. Just a light wash like that. Just allows you to apply some detail in here. Same goes for these ones. If you feel you've gone a bit too dark in areas, you just do what I'm doing, lift it off with your fingers or a bit of tissue paper. Just going over with a bit of this kind of cooler color really makes a difference. Realize I'm taking quite a long time to paint this, so I want to finish this off as quickly as I can now. And you know, I've got this bit of building here on the left, and I'm now just coloring it pretty much all the way in, so then it brings it forward. Let's add in some birds here and there. Oops, darker. More blue. Near the horizon, they're going to look a bit more obvious because the sky is lighter in that particular area. I do also like to hang around the tops of these buildings like that. So I'm going to apply some around here. Make use of little highlights like that. Smaller round brush can often get you a lot better detail and control. So this is a little one I've picked up. Darken these ones down. Same as pole. Street lamp. Okay, that's pretty much done. I'm probably going to go over and tidy it up a little bit after this, but you know, really the rest of it will just be darkening little areas of the figures to make their legs stand out more, for example. A bit of the spires and things on this church. But apart from that, it's pretty much done. Check out these line and wash tutorials here, that's going to help you get a bit more practice. I've also got some pure watercolour demonstrations and tutorials that'll help you with your watercolour techniques.